Mega Man X, a character whose existence has spanned nearly a quarter of a century. Now, if you guys watched my past Mega Man retrospective and why we love Mega Man so much video, we talked about Mega Man 1 through 10, talked about the future of the series in Mega Man 11, as well as touched on Mega Man X. And all the support I received after posting that video has been absolutely fantastic. It shows how passionate all you Mega Man fans out there are. I never expected such a positive reception. So thanks a lot, you guys. That's really the main motivation of me wanting to do this video for you guys as well. So if you guys haven't checked that one out, I'll go ahead and put the link in the description, and I'll put a title card up there for you so you can check that out. I recommend you watch that before checking out this one. But it did make me want to give Mega Man X his day in the sun. I think he deserves a full video all on his own because I know a lot of people, including myself, probably love Mega Man X even more than the original Mega Man himself. So we're going to go ahead and dive into Mega Man X 1 through 8. We're going to talk about Command Mission. We're going to talk about the Mega Man 0 and ZX series. I know a few people wanted me to get into those. And after we go through our retrospective on Mega Man X and all the reasons why we love him, we're going to see what the future holds for Mega Man X and the franchise, and talk about all the possibilities there. So guys, just sit back and relax. We're going to check out Mega Man X and why we love him so much. The first game begins explaining that X was a robot created by Dr. Light, who was able to think and feel and act on his own, the first robot of his kind ever created. After creating X, Dr. Light realized it would take about 30 years of testing to decide whether X was going to be ready for the real world. Dr. Light, realizing that he would not be around long enough to see his dream come to fruition, he buried Mega Man X deep inside his laboratory. All those years later, another doctor named Dr. Kane was embarking on an expedition to research fossil records of plant life. After setting up his camp, he notices an odd metallic reading, which then leads him to discover the remnants of Dr. Light's laboratory. Dr. Kane eventually succeeding in activating Mega Man X. He then uses X as a template to create Reploids. After a time period of the Reploids' creation in which they served humankind peacefully, eventually a few of the Reploids became what were known as Mavericks and started attacking humankind. After more and more Maverick robots keep appearing, eventually the Maverick Hunters organization is formed, with X eventually joining them under their leader, Commander Sigma. Later, a robot named Zero awakens and is immediately classified as a Maverick infected with the Maverick virus. After wiping out an entire squadron of Maverick Hunters, eventually Commander Sigma ends up fighting Zero. Sigma is damaged by Zero and infected with the virus. However, Zero is defeated by Sigma, taken in, repaired by Dr. Kane, and trained under Sigma as a Maverick Hunter. Sigma, still being infected by the Maverick virus, slowly succumbs to it over time and becomes the main antagonist of the game. And that's where Mega Man X and his nearly 25-year enduring legacy begins. Okay, so like we talked about, I did cover Mega Man X in my original retrospective video, but I do want to talk about it a little bit more here just because it is a very important game in the franchise. And the reason why I say that is the first point I want to get into, and that is Mega Man X completely revitalized the franchise. It updated the formula, and that was a sorely needed update, I think, after 6 mainline Mega Man entries until Mega Man X came out. People were definitely ready for that upgrade in graphics and sound, gameplay. You know, in the way Mega Man X just does things that the original Mega Man never did, like the ability to upgrade your body, dashing, armor, upgrade your X-Buster, gives you all kinds of new abilities, but also just cool little touches like the way you can defeat certain bosses. Like on this stage I defeated Chill Penguin first, and then I go on to Flame Mammoth stage. Instead of the bottom of the stage being lava, it's now ice. Makes it easier to get through the stage, allows you to get more items. And another thing we never got with the original series so much, a story. And a pretty good story. You start off the game with Mega Man being really an utter weakling, and Zero comes in and saves him, says one day you can be as powerful as me, and that motivates you right away out of the gate, like, oh man, I can be as powerful as Zero, holy crap, let's get going, let's get after this. Because Zero is a really cool character, and Capcom just did a great job of motivating you to push yourself into this new type of Mega Man, into the new formula, getting all the upgrades, wanting to become more powerful. And by the time you got to the end of the game and you were fully powered up, you were ready to take on anything. And I think that's one of the main things for me that always made the original Mega Man X so special, is that it enhanced that sense of progression that Mega Man had by giving you not only the weapons from the Robot Masters, but more powerful versions of those weapons by being able to charge them up. You were able to have a more powerful version of your X-Buster. You had the helmet that allowed you to break holes in the ceiling and gain access to more items. There were all these things that made X feel like a real upgrade over the original Mega Man. I mean, what more positive things can we say about Mega Man X? Just really a landmark platforming action title for the Super Nintendo. Probably one of the greatest games on the system. Probably one of the greatest games of all time, to be quite honest. I don't know of many people that ever said they disliked Mega Man X. There's some other games further down the line that we definitely can have more complaints about, but this one, they really hit the sweet spot. And really, how cool was it when you unlocked the ability to do a Hadouken from Street Fighter? Come on, that's the best. Boom! One-shotted! And after Mega Man X left such a strong foundation for the Mega Man X series, gamers were ready, they were hungry for another Mega Man entry. Luckily they wouldn't have to wait that long for Mega Man X2. But first I wanted to mention a remake to the original Mega Man X, Mega Man X Maverick Hunter for the PSP. So real quickly I wanted to touch on Mega Man X Maverick Hunter for the PSP. This was actually a remake of the original Mega Man X, came out for the PSP in 2006. It actually was a fairly well-received game at the time. It does add the anime intro into it, and also snippets of dialogue between Mega Man X and the Mavericks before he goes ahead and fights him, so it gives you a little bit more background, a little more story. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of the art style in Maverick Hunter X. I much prefer the pixelated art style of the Super Nintendo version. I think it just has a little more life. This art style just seems a little bit too sterile to me, if that makes any sense. And the polygon's a little bit too blocky. I think it robs Mega Man of some of its personality to watch it in this form. But the gameplay is still tight. Pretty much plays the same for the most part. Now, as far as the bosses, there are some differences. Some of the bosses seem a little easier, some a little harder. You've got some items that are in different locations this time. For example, the dash boots are now in Flame Mammoth stage instead of Chill Penguins, which definitely takes some getting used to, but it adds some variety to the gameplay. Also pretty cool is the ability to play as Vile, one of the main villains from the original Mega Man X game. But overall, I feel like it's a pretty decent game, worthy of a mention if you're looking for a little different spin on the original Mega Man X if you've played that one to death. Check it out if you can get your hands on it. I felt like it was worth a mention here. So on to Mega Man X2. Mega Man X2, taking place 6 months after the events of the original game after you defeat Sigma. Now, for those not too familiar with the story, in the first Mega Man X, Sigma was a former Maverick Hunter who turned Maverick himself. Mega Man X and Zero, being Maverick Hunters, also had to defeat Sigma because he was looking to start a revolt and destroy the entire human race. So at the end of the first game, Zero having to sacrifice himself in order to help defeat Sigma, and that's where X2 picks up. X, in addition to having to defeat the rest of the Mavericks remaining, also trying to find parts of Zero's body and to try to restore Zero to his former self. One thing you'll see that's interesting here are the wireframe graphics that you just saw on the screen. Those wireframe graphics were possible because Capcom included a enhancement chip in the Super Nintendo cart called the CX4, and that allowed for some 3D wireframing effects. So you'll see these throughout the game, at the beginning, at the end stages. It's kind of an interesting addition to the game, and it was really cool at that time on a system like the Super Nintendo to see 3D style effects. And so the next aspect that I wanted to mention about why we love Mega Man X, as you'll see here in this cutscene, you've got 3 different Mavericks that X has to take out eventually to get all of Zero's parts back. But the story and how fleshed out it is compared to the regular Mega Man games, where it was just Mega Man versus the Robot Masters defeating Dr. Wily, he gets away every time. That was kind of a old story, it was told over and over again. But this one having a very fleshed out story, and the way it makes you care about these characters more, like at the end of the first one, Zero sacrificing himself. You cared about that because Zero was an important character. He was helping you the whole way. You felt like you had grown alongside him, and to have him sacrifice himself meant a lot to the player, I think, at the end of X, and it made you want to get revenge on anybody that was associated with Sigma by the time X2 came around. X2 improving on a fair amount of aspects from its original iteration. This one allowing you to dash in midair with the dash boots instead of just on the ground. You get the ground dash by default. This one with the X-Buster, you actually get a double shot, which I much preferred over the original X-Buster upgrade, because this one allowed you to shoot a single shot and then hold the second shot without having to hold down the charge button. So that was a really nice addition. Allowed you to have more strategy in the game for defeating your enemies. And so overall I felt like X2 was an improvement over X. Now I'd say probably not as big of a gap as Mega Man 1 and 2 were, because I felt like Mega Man 2 was a pretty large jump in quality over 1, where this one they did have some improvements, but it wasn't as noticeable of a quality jump just because Mega Man X was already such a fantastic game. X2 was really good, it felt. In a way, like more of the same. I guess that would be some criticism against it. To me, I didn't see that as a bad thing at the time because it was still a fresh franchise, a fresh series, and everything in these games felt new enough to where as long as they just made a few small improvements, it was probably plenty for most people, because the game did get pretty good critical reception, and fans, from what I saw, tended to like it as well quite a bit. Now, the 2 things that pop into my head of what this game is always going to be known for are going to be the Giga Crush and the Shoryuken, again from Street Fighter. I loved being able to do that stuff when I was a kid. I really wish they would have included those attacks, some type of Street Fighter attack in every game, and definitely the Giga Crush. I loved using that move.
Yeah, suck on this, you stupid frog! Shoryuken! Yeah! It's over, wireframe head Sigma. Die!
Probably the most interesting aspect of this ending is that you find out that Zero may be more than he appears to be. Mega Man X and Zero emerging once again victorious over Sigma and the Mavericks. As they both stare out over the open sea, they wonder if peace will ever be achievable, or if the fighting will never end. And that's where we pick up with Mega Man X3. Mega Man X3 coming out January 1996. So we basically had a Mega Man X game every year, because Mega Man X came out at the end of 93, and 94, the end of that year, we had X2, and beginning of 96, X3. So almost every year a new X game for the Super Nintendo. Did that affect the quality at all? Did they maintain the quality? Let's take a look at this one. Alright, so just to catch you guys up on the story of where we're at now, after the events of Mega Man 2 and Zero and Mega Man X defeating Sigma, All the rest of the Mavericks get neutralized thanks to the efforts of a Reploid scientist named Dr. Doppler. He used something called a neural computer, which was able to suppress any abnormal behavior of the Maverick virus, so the Reploids went back to normal, and it also prevented other Reploids from going berserk. Many of the most advanced Reploids gathered near Dr. Doppler and formed Doppeltown, which is supposed to be a neutral utopian community. With Dr. Doppler guiding them, the world seemed ready to enter a new golden age. But a few months later, the Mavericks, who were supposed to have been neutralized by the neural computer, all of a sudden started to riot and go berserk again. So at the Maverick Hunters headquarters, all the intelligence indicated that Dr. Doppler was the mastermind behind the invasion. Soon the call went out to X and Zero to destroy the invading Mavericks and to bring Dr. Doppler to justice. And that's where we pick up with the story of Mega Man X3. And so the game starts off as pretty standard Mega Man X fare so far. You start off as X in the initial stage, clearing out enemies, going through, defeating them, and then it happens. X gets captured and trying to fight this enemy named Mac. And you're like, where do I go from here? X is captured, I can't do anything else. The game is pretty much
What? You get to play Zero? What? No! No way! Oh my god! Oh my god! Yeah!
Point number 3, you play as Zero, he's the coolest, he's the best. Hell yeah! The fact that we finally got to play as Zero after 3 whole games, something that I know that a lot of players were waiting for a long time, probably since the first game, because Zero was set up as such a cool character, especially compared to Mega Man X. X was a little lame at the time initially since he was set up to be such a weakling, in contrast to Zero, who was shown to be really powerful. And it was kind of interesting later on how we found out that Keiji Inafune actually wanted to design the original Mega Man X closer to Zero's design, but he was so far removed from the original Mega Man that they wanted him to go ahead and change it to the current form of Mega Man X that you're seeing right now. So Zero having all kinds of powerful moves. He's got his multiple Zero Buster shot, he's got his Z-Saber, the most powerful weapon in the game. Made him really fun to play. He's fully powered up right from the start. However, unfortunately, because Zero is so OP in this game, when you go to fight a boss, you automatically switch back over to Mega Man X, and you're not able to fight most of the bosses, with one exception, I believe. As Zero, you have to fight them as X. A few more differences with this one. With a leg upgrade, you get the ability to dash mid-air and straight up instead of just forward, so that was a pretty handy addition. It allowed them to change the levels up a little bit more, put items in a few other hidden spots that they wouldn't have been able to in the first 2 X games, so it definitely added a little more to that versatility that we always talk about with Mega Man. In addition, with the X-Buster upgrade also giving you the ability to combine your shots into one huge powerful shot and also shoot them separately, so that was a pretty cool addition as well. Just again adding a little more variety to the gameplay like they always tend to do. On top of that, you also had the ability to further enhance your powers by installing what were called enhancement chips. This one here allowed you to dash twice in the air if you install it in your legs. The body chip, further enhancing X's defensive capabilities, reducing the damage he receives. There's one that allowed you to fire off continuous charged shots without charging up your weapon, allow you to slowly regain your health while you're standing still. So there's all kinds of different things that they were doing, just like they did with Mega Man, little extra things that they would add with each sequel to try to keep things fresh and new. One neat thing that they decided to throw in the game too was the ability to get gold colored armor, which allowed you to have all 4 of the enhancement chips at once, so that was kind of their substitute for having like a traditional Street Fighter move in there like they did with the first 2 games. Now you get the gold armor, you get all 4 upgrade chips. It was a pretty cool addition, I did enjoy that, but I kind of would have preferred a Street Fighter move just to keep up with the tradition. 2 was kind of the last time that they decided to do that, but don't get me wrong, having the gold armor was pretty badass too. And finally, another secret is you do have the ability to unlock Zero's Beam Saber if you meet special conditions in the game too for Mega Man X. So there's all kinds of different variety in this game, and it really added to the experience for me. I know I liked all three of the main Mega Man X entries on the Super Nintendo. One quick thing I wanted to mention too is that they did have a PlayStation and a Saturn version of the game that was released about a year and a half after the original Mega Man X3 came out for the Super Nintendo. It's got some enhanced sound, it's got some anime cutscenes and boss intros. I personally have never played it myself. I've seen some video of it, and I'd like to check it out someday, but let me know what you guys think if you've played it. Do you think it's superior or inferior to the Super Nintendo version? And so, surprise, surprise, we find out that Sigma is behind it all. He was controlling Dr. Doppler the whole time. And depending on whether Zero is defeated in the game or he's still around, you get one of two possible endings. The one you're seeing here is Dr. Doppler defeating Sigma with the antivirus himself, or Zero takes out Sigma with his Z-Saber infused with the antivirus. Either way, you end up with X staring out over the defeated Sigma and Dr. Doppler and the broken lab, and he wonders, what was his ultimate purpose? Dr. Light was a very peaceful man. Why would X have to spend his entire life fighting? And that's when we find out the big shocker ending of the game. Wait, what? My God.